I'll restart this because I did not have my audio turned on. Welcome to the Tyler Turner Show. Today's date is December 7th. It's not November. We moved on to December. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Periscope, and iTunes. If you're on iTunes, please leave a review. We would appreciate it very much. Also, check us out at thesportscast.net. Check us out also on the iOS App Store, the Sportscast. Hey guys, I'm gonna turn my video on here. Long time, no speak, no see. Little Big Ten Pac-12 preview. I know that you guys are all excited. It's heading towards the end of the season. It is going to be the final week of both the Big Ten, Pac-12 before championship week. I know that the Big Ten for sure has agreed to do 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2 format. I'm not so sure about the Pac-12. I don't think they necessarily have agreed to do that. There's honestly been a lot of conflict about if they're going to have top 2 division teams play for the title, or just because of the weird situation that's over there. So few games, cancellations, the records just being an overall mess. I guess I'm going to first hit up, I'm going to talk more about the Pac-12, but I guess I'll first hit up the Big Ten. Week 14. Didn't watch a lot of the Big Ten matchups, so I watched a lot more of the Pac-12, but I did see a little, and I'm going to give what I believe to be the case right now in the Big Ten. Big Ten West, you had Nebraska defeating Purdue. Nebraska hasn't had a great year. They're 2-4. They're supposed to play Minnesota this week. They have played, after a rough start, they have played better as a season. I believe they won their 3rd game, and now that would be they won their 6th. They're still not a very good team, but they beat Purdue. Purdue's not been very good. They won the first couple games, and they have not won since. Also in the West, Iowa. Now, Iowa's a good story. They had a lot of offseason issues. They had their strength and conditioning coach get fired, Sean Doyle, one of the best strength and conditioning coaches in college football. He got fired due to some behavior that was basically accused of him by former Iowa Hawkeye players. Kirk Ferentz had some Hawkeye players, ex-players that petitioned to have him fired. It was pretty kind of ugly offseason for Iowa. I didn't think they're going to be very good this year because of it, because I just thought the off-field turmoil. But Kirk Ferentz can coach, and he proved that. He lost his first 2 games, 2 very close games, lost by like a couple points to Purdue, and at a game that they would win now. And then they lost to like a last-second kind of game to Northwestern. Since they've reeled off 5 victories, they're rated number 19 in the college football playoff. I think because of some of the losses, they're going to bump up. They have a chance to not only obviously win this week. We'll see who they play. Get it? They play Wisconsin, and they might be Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not playing that well. I tend to lean Iowa, and if Iowa can, win another game, go to championship week, win their game, they could possibly see themselves in a New Year's 6. I actually think as of today, now there's the whole Ohio State. If they miss another game, will Ohio State possibly not be allowed to play in the Big Ten championship? We'll see. As of today, I believe it would be Iowa if Iowa beats Wisconsin, even if they don't beat Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin's missed 3. Oh, yeah, Wisconsin. They, first of all, cannot play for the Big Ten title, and I don't think they would even be second, because they're going to only end up playing 5 games in the Big Ten. So I think Iowa's pretty much locked up the number 2. Iowa and Indiana, which is a great game. I think the winner will play in the New Year's 6. I actually think there's a better chance. Northwestern has won the West. They didn't play last week's game. They had it canceled because of the COVID situation with the Minnesota Gophers. I believe Northwestern, that makes them 6-1. They play this week against week 15. Northwestern plays Illinois, I'd pick Northwestern. Illinois is not a very good team. But I think if Northwestern loses, which I'd pick them to do, especially if they play Ohio State, I think they'll lose. I think that would probably knock them out of the New Year's Six. And I believe the winner of Indiana-Iowa plays in the New Year's Six. The loser would probably get knocked out. It's the top 12 in the rankings. You obviously have the champions of the 5 Power 5 conferences and the highest rated group of 5 team. And then the other 6 are at large. And I believe if you fall within the top 12 of the rankings, I believe you're automatically in a New Year's Six bowl. So I believe the winner of Indiana, as long as Iowa beats Wisconsin this week, I believe the winner of Indiana versus Iowa will play in the New Year's Six game. So good, but impressive. Just to go back to that, impressive victory, another victory by Iowa. They're playing good on both sides of the ball. I think they're a pretty good team. Indiana beat Wisconsin. Another great victory by Indiana. Great job that Tom Allen's done. Won some good games. Played Ohio State a heck of a game. A 7-point loss at the Shoe. Like I said, I think if they win this week, going into that final championship weekend, they are going to be playing for a New Year's Six bowl. If Ohio State cannot go against Michigan and the Big Ten sticks to their guns and says that to be eligible for the Big Ten championship, you have to play at least 6 games, Ohio State would not be eligible, and it would be Indiana versus Northwestern for the Pac-12. I'm sorry. Might as well play for the Pac-12 title. No, for the Big Ten title. And wow, that'd be awesome if Indiana was the Big Ten champion. It'd be kind of a glitch because I do really, truly believe that the number 1 team in the Big Ten is definitely Ohio State. And Ohio State probably still would make the college football playoff. I think at 5-0, they'd still, and they're going to play someone championship week, probably Wisconsin, because they're not that Big Ten eligible or something. So I believe it'll be Ohio State. Ultimately, that if they are, as long as they're undefeated, I believe they'll make the college football playoff in this weird, wonky, strange college football season. It's just weird. Just the weirdest. I don't really have anything more to say about any other games. Penn State, it's won their second game in a row. Rutgers is, still just lacking some talent. And then Ohio State just blew out Michigan State. Ohio State had a bunch of players out due to COVID. Coach Ryan Day was out. I think they're missing 3 offensive linemen, missing one of the linebackers, safety, and they still just smoked them off the field. Michigan State's not very good. And that kind of goes with what when it comes to both the Big Ten and Pac-12, I just don't think the play has been very good. I think the cancellation or the postponement of the season, then they obviously decided to come back. I just think it threw teams off, and it's just not been very good. Ohio State just is very talented. They have one of the best rosters in college football, not just in the Pac-12. So, because of that, I think they've been able to sustain. I still don't think for a lot of their games they've looked quite as good as they probably are. I just don't think teams are – if you have great talent, they were able to do it. And then Michigan's underperformed, Wisconsin's underperformed, Penn State's underperformed. And then some teams that I just think have really good coaches that just, they're just consistent. They just play to who they are. Indiana, Tom Allen, Kirk Reference, Iowa, Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern. Good coaches. This is who we are. This is our identity. And they just kind of play that every single year. Tough, run the football, hard-nosed at the line of scrimmage, solid defense. They get their type of guys in the program. They've been successful. And it's not surprising because in a year that's wonky, just a consistent coaching staff and a consistent organization and a consistent team is going to probably have the most success. And you've seen teams with maybe actually better talent, and probably more guys that could play at the NFL level, like a Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin. Rosters that I think have better players. I think the wonky season, I think guys have kind of checked out. Maybe they did. Penn State had some big opt-outs. Michael Parsons, Pat Freiermuth. Michigan had Ambry Jones, and they had Nico Collins. So they lost really good players to opting out because they're just like, I don't want to deal with this crap. I can go to the NFL. That's my goal anyways. And I think it's affected the whole organization of the team and the culture of the team, and it just haven't been as good. And it's happened in Pac-12 too. I mean, my team specifically, we root for Oregon. I've seen just those opt-outs they lost to go along with the overall players they lost last year. They have a young, talented team, probably better than anyone else in the Pac-12, but they haven't been very good. Just haven't been very consistent. Haven't played very well. So that's my thought on the Big Ten. I don't really have anything more. I'm going to quickly, because this is a shorter podcast because I got going later. The final week of the regular season before championship weekend, Illinois versus Northwestern. I really think Northwestern. The thing about Northwestern is they don't have a lot of offense, and you saw them get upset by Michigan State because of that. They've had to win a lot of close games. You never know. They don't have a ton of talent on offense. They don't have a ton of firepower. And when it is that way, make a couple of mistakes, and all of a sudden you find yourself being upset. And that's what happened. Michigan versus Ohio State. If this game happens, Ohio State blows them off the field. I don't know. Michigan didn't play this week because of COVID. We will see coming up. Minnesota versus Nebraska. That's another game I'm not totally sure it's going to happen due to the COVID situation in Minnesota. These two teams have been just pretty inconsistent. I don't think either one's very good. I guess because Nebraska will go Nebraska, and because they've been dealing with COVID, maybe they're a little shorthanded. I don't know. Minnesota's had problems with COVID from the beginning. It's been really unfortunate. That really affected the overall team. Rutgers versus Maryland. Maryland's another team struggle with COVID. What is Maryland's record, by the way? Hold on, let's see. Week 14. Maryland. Oh, they had their game canceled. Maryland's another team. Ouch. They've only played 4 games. They're not eligible. So they're another team just like Wisconsin that's not eligible for a Big Ten championship game. And they're obviously on the opposite side. So actually, as of today, they would probably be playing each other. Ohio State might jump in there if their game gets canceled. I would probably say I would have got the wrong week up. Week 16, let's pull that up. Nope. Week 15, pull it up. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to say, so I go Northwestern, I go Ohio State. And once again, I don't know if all these games are going to happen because none have been canceled. So far, Big Ten's had 8 games canceled, and they have not had any makeups. So 8 games canceled, no makeups on the Big Ten side. Different in Pac-12. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to go Maryland. I think they're better. It's tough. I don't think they've been a bad team this year. They've just had a lot of COVID issues. So I think they win. I think that makes them go 3-2. Michigan State versus Penn State. Penn State is playing a little better. He must have been able to get them a little. The last couple of weeks, Michigan and Rutgers, they played pretty well and won pretty easily. I think Michigan State's, I don't think they're any good. They've somehow beaten Northwestern and Michigan. Northwestern made some mistakes. And like I said, they don't have a lot of offense. I think Penn State wins. I think they finished the season off strong. Stronger. I don't know what's strong. And then Purdue versus Indiana. I read Indiana. Purdue's not playing very well right now. Indiana is a good team. Playing good defense. Backup quarterback Michael Penix went out with an ACL surgery. Jack Tuttle comes in. I thought he was decent enough, and he was a pretty highly regarded recruit out of high school. Went to Utah, transferred over to Indiana. I think Indiana's pretty good. So, and then Wisconsin versus Iowa. Wisconsin, like I said, they have not been as good as I thought they would. The COVID, I think, threw that team off. I think they had, when I saw them the opening week and Graham Mertz looking good, since then the offense just has not been in sync. They've just struggled to consistently really do anything effectively, especially when it comes to efficiency in the red zone. I think Iowa's looked pretty good. It's at Iowa. The Big Ten, I would have to look at it again. Big Ten, there was not much. For some reason, the Pac-12, despite no fans, the home team has definitely been more successful. Big Ten, it was pretty even when I last checked. I'd have to look into it more recently, but there was not much of it. It was basically 50-50. I'm going to go Wisconsin. It's Iowa. I think Iowa's going to win, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if it's Wisconsin. But I believe no matter what, Iowa will play the number 2 team, which I hope is Indiana. That's a good game. And as long as Iowa beats Wisconsin, Indiana wins this week, they play for a New Year's Six bowl. That's a hell of a prize for those two teams. That's tremendous. Possibly I could see them playing in the Fiesta Bowl against maybe the Pac-12 champion. I could totally see that be the game. They would like to, link Big Ten, Pac-12. They always like doing that. So I could totally see the winner going out and playing the Pac-12 champion. Speaking of which, let's head out to the Pac-12. Let's go over what happened this past week and what this conference looks like moving forwards. They actually did not have any cancellations. Pac-12 had been terrible. First 4 weeks, they had 9 cancellations. Like I said, there's 8 for the Big Ten after 7 weeks. Through 4 weeks, Pac-12 had 9. They had none last week. One thing the Pac-12 did better than the Big Ten was they scheduled some makeup games. So 9 cancellations, but they had 2 conference makeup games, and they had 1 non-conference makeup game, Colorado versus San Diego State. So they made up 3 games. So that's total, if you're doing the net, 1's a non-conference, so it's half. They basically lost 9, got back 2.5, so they lost the net of 6.5. The Big Ten lost 8, and they haven't made up any. So despite the Big Ten starting earlier, there is a chance, when there's still a couple weeks left, but there is a chance that the Pac-12 actually does end up missing. And just thinking if they can make up, maybe they miss another game or 2. But if the Big Ten just keeps on just like cancel, and the Pac-12 actually could end up not having as many games canceled, which is good for them due to the fact that they started 2 weeks later. They were already way behind the 8 ball. I don't believe they're going to have a college football team, but I wouldn't rule it out because USC, who came in as the number 2 team in the Pac-12, did not play good the first few weeks. They have the last couple weeks. They are undefeated. If they were able to go 6-0, you never know. I think it's doubtful. I can put it at extremely unlikely, especially now that you know that basically Alabama, Florida, Clemson, 8, and Notre Dame, there's a good chance that 3, maybe 4 of those teams make the college football playoff. If Florida beats Alabama and Clemson beats Notre Dame, forget it. Those are the 4 teams. I think from what you've seen this year, I think Ohio State gets left out, unfortunately, because they only played 6 games in the scenario. Now, if Alabama wins, if Clemson wins, then I think it would be Clemson, Notre Dame, Alabama, and then I think it would be Ohio State. If the scenario I'm looking at is if Notre Dame wins, Alabama wins, then it'll probably just be Alabama, Notre Dame. Then you're looking at Texas A&M, who had another game canceled. So I don't know if they're going to play again. I think their season might be done. They might do a makeup game, but they've only played 8 games. So they're going to play at most 8 to 9 games. In that scenario, so I'm just breaking this down real time. Yeah, Alabama wins their conference. Notre Dame beats Clemson again. So then you have, let's say, just give undefeated Ohio State. You ain't got Ohio State. Who is number 4? Is it a 1-loss Texas A&M who doesn't win their conference? Or is it Cincinnati? Let's just say they're undefeated. Or is it USC? Undefeated in the Pac-12. And then the other one would be maybe a 2-loss Big 12. I mean, in that scenario, I think you maybe just do one of those, eliminate someone didn't win their conference. You get rid of Texas A&M. Eliminate anyone with 2 losses. You eliminate Notre Dame. And then it's the Power 5 versus the non-Power 5. They give the edge. I'm just saying, I don't think from USC, they did look better against Washington State. I still don't think, and I'm going to actually, in a second, go through it. I actually don't think the USC wins this weekend. I actually think USC beats them. I'm sorry, USC. I think USC beats USC. Well, USC might beat USC. That might be the reason. No, I actually think UCLA beats them. And I have a reasoning more than just USC beating themselves. I actually think, but anyways, so then I think it's all important. But if USC in the circumstance, in the scenario that I said, Alabama wins out, Notre Dame wins out, I could see USC getting the nod over a one-loss A&M, a two-loss, let's say, quote-unquote, Oklahoma, and an undefeated but a group of 5 Cincinnati. I could see USC getting the playoff. I could say it. I really could. I don't necessarily think USC should, and I think they would get really throttled by Notre Dame. Actually, no, it'd be Alabama. Alabama, I think they get throttled by Notre Dame this year too. But we'll see. That's the scenario. But anyways, going back to the Pac-12 this week, USC beat Washington State. That was a Sunday game, 38-6. No, 30, or was 38-13? It was 38-13. They ended up. I think the second half, was it like 30? I think it was 38 to, it was like 35-6 at half. And then it was like, I saw the second half, no one did anything. I kind of turned it off because it was pretty redundant. USC, what I like about them, I actually think they don't have a bad defense. They force turnovers. They get after the quarterback. They're good against. They're good against the pass. They don't give up a bunch of big plays in the pass game. The run defense, not as much the last 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks they did get run on a little bit. Or Arizona and Arizona State ran on the defense. And I still think if a team can, like the problem with Utah and Washington State, they both had a combined 9 turnovers, 5 by Utah and 4 by Washington State. Well, when you turn the ball over, you're behind. I mean, they got behind and it made it hard to just come back. But if you can consistently run on USC, consistently get ahead of the change, you can run on them a little bit. And that's what you saw with Arizona and Arizona State. They don't have a terrific run defense. Their linebackers they miss quite a few tackles, get out of position a little bit. There's a little bit of a run fit issue. You can run, and that's why. So I'll address that. I'll address that game next. Anyways, USC is not bad. Keaton Slovis is one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12. They have a terrific wide receiver core, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Drake London and Brew McCoy and Tyler Vaughns and Gary Bryant Jr. And their overall skill position talent is very good. And same thing with the defensive side of the ball. Talanoa Hufanga is the best defensive back, I think, overall. Maybe him or Elijah Molden in the whole conference. They got Paulo Mao, I think, is the other safety. He's a solid player. They have good corners, Elijah Griffin and Chris Steele. I don't think they're amazing, but they're solid corners. So I overall think it's a pretty decent team. They have the quarterback, Drake Jackson can get the quarterback. So I think it's a solid team. But stopping the run, and then on offense, they can't run the ball worth crap. I've seen them play Arizona State they couldn't run, Arizona they couldn't run against, Utah they struggled with. They had 0 yards yesterday against Washington State. They do not run the ball very well. Now, it's air raid. It's not really predicated on the run game, but I think if they play Washington in particular or Oregon, that's my team, but my goodness, it's been frustrating this year. But anyways, Washington in particular, I could see being like, you know what, we're going to make you run. Like pretty much they put 6-7 guys into coverage, basically outnumber them in coverage. And Washington is a very good pass defense. Jimmy Lake was a defensive back coach, defense coordinator, pass game coordinator. And they have some really good players, Elijah Molden, TJ McDuffie, Kyler Gordon. These are 3 of Taylor. Those are some of the best defensive backs in the Pac-12. I could see them giving USC just a pretty tough time. I could see them having to run, and that's not their identity. I don't think they run the ball that well. I think their offensive line is very good at running the ball. And remember, when they're practicing against air raid, this if you are practicing the air raid, you're not really practicing getting downhill. And if they're forced to throw when their numbers are not their advantage, they have 5 guys out on a route and you have 7 guys in dropping back. You're basically saying, hey, you got to find open guys. That's going to be a little difficult. And that's where I could see USC just, I could see their offense just struggling. That's why their offense probably overall its efficiency, I believe, is, I think, yards they're first in the conference, but I think overall efficiency, I think they're 4th or 5th for offense. Their defense is actually much higher rated when it comes to overall efficiency. So, and I would say overall, just the lack of being able to run, I think is a huge problem for USC. And I think that would come to fruition against kind of any, like, it's going to be either Oregon or Washington. Oregon's defense has just been, I mean, they played better against Cal. So, okay, so segue into that. Oregon lost to Cal. Oregon, my team, defending Pac-12 champions, the highest rated team coming into this season, a team that I think many people considered possible college football playoff. The opt-outs, I think, just hurt them. I think it just the leadership, the overall talented players they lost, especially in the defensive backfield. Their defense, for the most part, has not been very good this year. They did play much better last game. Unfortunately, the offense, which had been very good, had been pretty much number one in every statistical area in the Pac-12, they decided to not play a very good game. So they lost. Tyler Shuck, the Oregon quarterback, did not play very well. They didn't necessarily run the ball well. They turned the ball over a couple times, really key turnovers, both on the plus side. Also had a turnover and down in the red zone. Fumbled the ball at the end of the fourth quarter, and that ended up being the game-sealing play. Johnny Johnson III caught a ball, fumbled it. They're just weren't very good offensively. They're defensively, they actually held them to under 300 yards. They held them to like 4.1 yards per play. Honestly, the one of the drives ended up in a touchdown. If it wasn't for like 3 stupid penalties by Oregon, too many men on the field, unsportsmanlike conduct, and then a horrible 4th down pass interference call that was not pass interference. Oregon really they gave up very few big plays. They gave up a couple, but the couple big plays they gave were through the air. And once again, it's that defensive backfield, the safety group, that they just haven't been very good. I just think they're not very good back there. And that is, if, like I say, Oregon wins this week, which actually I'm going to pick them to win. Call me Homer, call it what I want. I'm going to pick them to win. So that means they win the North and they play, and I actually think they're going to play USC, even though I think USC is going to lose this week. So I'll play that. Where I'd struggle to pick Oregon is their secondary. Like, I mean, but they're not that good against the run either. So even though USC is not that good against the run, and they've not been that good again after the quarterback, once again, they were better last game. They had 4 sacks. They had 7 tackles for loss. Their defense as a whole, getting after the quarterback, causing havoc in the run game, not forcing first turnovers other than UCLA. They've been terrible this year at that. But for the most part, their defense was better. This was their best performance. Better than Stanford. I know they held Stanford to 14, but Stanford got a lot of yards, 400-plus yards on them. And it wasn't for 4 missed field goals, that game would have been closer and they would have scored more. So this was the defensive side of the ball's best game. If the defense can play like that and basically get after Slovis, force them to run, and they're able to stop the run with just their front, basically front 4, front 6, then they could beat USC. But I haven't seen that consistently. I would trust Washington with their very good defensive backfield to be able to really cause some confusion, maybe cause some turnovers, and then forcing USC to do something else. And I don't know if USC's in DNA can just turn to a run offense. I mean, Washington's not that hard to run on. They don't have a great rush defense, but I just haven't seen it from USC. So, and it's when you make, but anyways, Oregon lost. Oregon is 3-2. Believe it or not, them and Washington play for the Pac-12 North title. Winner can win the Pac-12. Winner can go to the New Year's Six game. Honestly, Oregon was going to. I mean, if they would have figured out to win those last two games, I mean, go undefeated. Who knows? Maybe they sneak into the playoff. I don't think they have a playoff team this year. Sorry, I don't think USC does. And ultimately, I think that's why USC will lose either this week or the next week. I just don't think they're a playoff team. And if they go 6-0, I just don't think they do. So I think what ends up happening is life takes care of itself. But anyways, the other game, Washington versus Stanford. Now, Washington, first of all, they've all played all their games at home. They've not had one road game. They've also played with fire. They could have lost to Oregon State, but they had a play go their way on a – almost thought I heard my son bang. But go their way on the goal line, and they were able to hold on there 27-21. Then they beat Arizona easily. Who hasn't? Spoiler alert, everybody. Okay, and then number 3 game was against Utah. They were down 21-0 at halftime and came back and won it 24-21 with like 30 seconds left on a touchdown to Cade Otton. Then last game, once again, fell way down, 24-3 at halftime. It was 31-10, middle of the third quarter, came all the way back. Actually, I thought scored the game-tying touchdown with about 3 minutes left. They called offensive pass interference. Then they ended up not being able to score. They got a field goal, kicked it to Stanford, couldn't stop them. Stanford actually literally ran the clock out. Were able to get a 4th down conversion, game over. And honestly, it would have been wrong because Stanford outplayed them for the first 3 quarters. I mean, I forgot what the total yards was, but at the one point it was like 400 some yards. Stanford and Washington had like barely 200, and basically they completely were the better team for the first 3 quarters. But once again, let's say they'll give it to Washington. They almost came back. They almost won it. They gave them a chance to almost win it. But they didn't. So Washington played fire a little bit too much. They then, for the first time this season, go on the road. And that is going to play into my prediction a little bit. I think that matters, especially since, despite no fans, Oregon is very good at home. They're 15-1 at home under Mario Cristobal, 2-0 this year. And they just play better at home. They're just better there. And that's what I'm going. Other games, didn't watch other games as much. Utah beat Oregon State. First victory of the season for Utah. Oregon State was without starting quarterback Tristan Gebbia and starting running back Jameer Johnson. That made a big difference. I still don't think Utah's a very good team, but they were able to win that game. UCLA beat Arizona State. Arizona State missed 3 weeks due to COVID. It's been an unfortunate year for Arizona State. I actually think in a perfect – I think Arizona State actually was probably the second best team in the South, but they're probably just going to win one game. They play championship weekend, and they'll probably maybe get another victory. They play like an Oregon State, but unfortunately, they missed 3 weeks because of COVID, and it's one of those seasons. They're going to end up probably playing 3-4 games, and that's it. Just kind of bad luck. So UCLA though, low key, this UCLA and Colorado are the 2 most impressive teams. And the funny thing is they played week 1. UCLA had a bunch of turnovers. Colorado jumped up to a big lead. UCLA came storming back, almost won the game. And I was like, and I know other people, other podcasters, other groups that cover the Pac-12 were like, well, bottom feeders, someone had to win. Colorado won it. Colorado's 4-0. UCLA's 3-2. And their only other loss was the last-second loss to Oregon, where they had a chance to win it at the end. I think actually UCLA's not been a bad team. I think they do several things very well. I think they run the ball pretty well. I think they get after the quarterback pretty well on defense. They have a pretty efficient offense overall. They have a pretty efficient defense overall. UCLA could possibly be the best team in the Pac-12. So in this short season, yeah, they're not bad. I know people are like, get Chip Kelly. He's not. He's done. I think this is the last hurrah here. I mean, he's not recruiting well. He does not have a talented roster, but they're not that bad this year. So so Utah, UCLA, Oregon. Just off the top of my head, Washington, Stanford game, USC game. I am missing a game. Oh, Arizona, Colorado. Oh, didn't even mention it. I didn't see it. I don't know much about the game. Colorado won. Colorado's 4-0. Arizona's horrible. They're 0-4. That's the only thing I know. The best they looked was week 1 against USC. Since then, downhill. They haven't even been competitive in the last 3 games against Washington, UCLA, and Colorado. Colorado, 4-0. When I still look at them, I mean, honestly, they played UCLA several times. I think UCLA is probably a little better team. I think they're a little more dynamic where it matters. They also beat Stanford. Stanford almost came back and won that game. How Stanford is playing now with a little more talent roster, I think Stanford beats them. But coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's one of these weird years in Colorado, and then they beat San Diego State. They won their non-conference game, the only team to get one because of the cancellations. And then they beat Arizona. Do I think Colorado's great? No. I think if they somehow beat Utah, who I don't think it's that good, they could win it. And if USC loses, Colorado goes to the Pac-12 championship. I would feel pretty comfortable taking Washington or Oregon over Colorado. I would. I think they beat them. I think it's for the conference championship game. I think whoever goes there, I think they're going to play their best game. I think Washington and I think Oregon playing their best game would beat them. Whereas not necessarily USC. USC does have some very talented, like I said, they have some very talented players, especially in regards to playing against Oregon. Oregon struggles in secondary. Struggling in secondary when you have 3-4 of the top wide receivers in the whole conference and the top quarterback in the conference, that's not good for your defense. You don't want to struggle there when they have dynamic receivers. So, but Colorado doesn't necessarily have that. They don't. They have a good running back, but if you have a good running back, make them do something else. And I think Neuer's a good quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. He's been an efficient quarterback. He's no game breaker. He's so. I feel pretty comfortable saying that if Colorado ends up being, and actually, from my prediction, I actually think Colorado does because I think they'd probably beat Utah because Utah I just don't think is very good. They don't have very good offense. I just don't think they're that good. I just think they had to break into new offense, new scheme. They did jump up 21-0 on Washington. Washington, they're not that good either. I mean, if well, my opinion, I don't think anyone in the Pac-12 is very good. I don't think anyone in the Pac-12 deserves to go to a New Year's Six game barely, or the college football playoff. I don't think the Big Ten's great either, but I actually, if you're going to go conference playoff, Big 12, Pac-12 challenge, I mean, Ohio State beats whoever's number 1 in Pac-12. You can count that. This year would probably say Indiana's better. I could see Iowa beating most of the teams in the Pac-12. I still would take the Big Ten. I would. And I don't think the Big Tens look great. I think a lot of their better teams like Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin have not played up to par. I think COVID's been a weird year. It's been a weird year all over. But I think as a whole, the big Pac-12, they don't even have one team that's really – like I thought it would be my team, Oregon, but the opt-outs and just the overall dynamics of the season – they're not very good this year. They're not. I've seen them play 5 weeks. I can be objective as possible. They have talent. they do have guys that can play. That's where I could see them this week, and I'm going to pick them. They're going to play Washington at home. That's their biggest rival in the Pac-12. They will be up for that game. I think they will play, as long as they don't turn the ball over, I think they'll play their best version of themselves. And I do think that version of themselves is able to possibly to be, I would favor them slightly to Washington because it's at Oregon. I think that both teams have flaws. Washington is a good defense, but they do not stop the run that well. Oregon runs the ball pretty good. They have been a little inconsistent. They were, good week 1. They were very good week 2. Week 3, they weren't good. Week 4, they were good early. Then they kind of folded late. Week 5, kind of the same. They ran the ball pretty good early, then not very good late. Turning the ball over too much. Oregon has just they were in other than the UCLA game where they had a 4-1 turnover advantage, they're 0 for 9. They've had caused 0 turnovers and had 9 turnovers in the other 4 games, and they've gone 2-2. They're losing the turnover battle. They're turning the ball over too much, and that's not good. I think Tyler Show overall has been. I thought he was good earlier in the year. I thought he made some mistakes early in the games against Stanford and Washington State, but I thought he played pretty well. I thought he didn't do bad against UCLA. I thought he hung in there and made some good plays, didn't make mistakes that game. Oregon State, I could argue he was the reason why they lost. They were ahead, and he had a bad interception, and they ended up scoring on that drive, and that really was probably the number one biggest momentum changer. And in this last game, had a fumble in plus territory, and he also was just very inaccurate, and he had a couple other balls that probably could have gotten picked up. I just don't think he's been very good. Last 2 weeks, he has been just a very, very average quarterback. We'll see if he can turn it around for the end of the season. I expected more of him. I'd heard really good things from people within the program, close to the program. He's gotten worse. He was better the first couple games than he was the last 2, and he not only that, his overall body language. Like last week, I'm like, that guy's not going to lead them to the game-winning drive. He just did not seem ready for the moment. And against Oregon State, they could have put the game away. And I just don't think he's very good. I don't think he's been that good. He's made some good plays. He has some ability, he has a pretty good arm. He's mobile. He can run. He is a good runner, probably the best part of his game. But he's not always accurate. He doesn't always make good decisions. And I just don't think it's the kind of play that's going to – we'll see. That's the one thing that gives me trepidation about picking against Washington, because Washington has a good pass defense, especially. Like, he's going to have to make some passes. And last week was probably the best pass defense he played against, and he didn't play well. I mean, he just wasn't making plays. And then this pass defense is even better. So, yeah. But I guess I'm going to pick the games, and then I'm going to close out because it's kind of getting late. This upcoming week, Arizona State versus Arizona on Friday. I have, first of all, why are they on Friday? Okay. Arizona State versus Arizona. I'm going to go Arizona State. It's been tough. The COVID's kicked their butt, but I think Arizona's horrible. Utah versus Colorado. I think Colorado at home will win this. I've struggled back and forth because I just feel as if Colorado's going to lose one. I do think Colorado loses one. I think they're going to lose the championship game. But I think they lose this game. But I think they win this game. Washington versus Oregon. I'm going to go pick Oregon. I think Tyler Shough bounces back enough. Oh, my gosh. I think Washington, Dylan Morris has turned the ball over a couple times. He definitely turned the ball over against Utah, and that's probably the reason why they probably got in the hole they did. I think he maybe turns the ball over. I think maybe this is a week where they can turn the ball over. They can run the ball, but I think they're going to force him to pass it. They also had a couple of their best receivers, Ucla and Terrell Bynum, that were out due to COVID protocol. Are they going to be out this week? We will see. I'm going to pick Oregon. Not very confident in that pick. USC versus UCLA. I think UCLA wins because it would be USC to lose here. And I think that UCLA can do some things that give USC trouble. They can run the ball. Demetric Felton is perhaps the best running back in the conference, him or Johnson out of Oregon State. I think they're going to run at USC, and I think USC does struggle to stop the run. I think one thing DTR can do, he can make plays with his legs. I think that they run on USC, and I think that's where their offense will be predicated on. And defensively, they can get after a quarterback. They can cause havoc in the run game. I think they will. I do worry a little bit about UCLA secondary, but I think they're going to get after Slovis. I think that is maybe force a turnover or two. I do think USC does get some points on the ground, but I think they're able to wear them down because of the run game. And I think UCLA beats USC this week. That's kind of my upset prediction. I'm not looking at okay, hold on. Here it is. So a couple games on Friday, just for the record. Cal versus Washington State. Didn't like what I saw from Washington State coming after the 2 weeks of cancellation from COVID. They just look kind of out of rhythm. Cal looked terrible against UCLA. All the COVID restrictions, they looked terrible that first game. Oregon State, Cal outplayed them, but unfortunately a couple bad mishaps in special teams game. Oregon State won. Stanford, Cal was pretty much a dead even game. End of the game, Stanford blocks an extra point, gets the victory. And then Cal was able to outfight Oregon. But Cal's looked pretty good the last 3 games. They only won 1. I think they beat Washington State. I think they're a little better team. I think they're able just to put together a little more consistency on both sides of the ball. Then the very last game, Stanford versus Oregon State. Stanford, of course, has those crazy restrictions in Santa Clara County. They actually have to practice the whole week in Oregon State. They beat Washington. I don't know if Tristan Gebbia is back. I don't know if Johnson's back. I like how Stanford's looking. I think Stanford possibly, if they played Oregon right now, I'd probably lean Stanford, to be honest with you. I think Stanford wins. So I think Stanford wins their 3rd straight, which then would, in my scenario, set up a Pac-12 championship of Oregon versus Colorado. And I'm saying it right now. I think Oregon beats Colorado. I think Colorado has done really well, but I think they're flawed. And in that case, Oregon would be back-to-back Pac-12 champions. Bittersweet. I don't think they've looked like they thought they would, or how their talent you would think would necessarily look, but whatever. They win. Pac-12 title. I'll take that for this season. If it was Oregon, I don't know. I think I picked USC over Oregon, but I'm not having. So then, actually, if they did this in the scenario I did, so if the results go like I did, and then I'm done after this, it'd be Oregon, Colorado. I'm taking Oregon. It would be number 2 team in the Pac-12 North versus the number 2 team in the Pac-12 South. It'd be USC versus Stanford. That's a good game. Stanford gives them problems. They do have problems in their secondary stopping the pass. I'd go USC coming off the loss. I think that'd be a close game, though. Then it would be Washington versus UCLA. I think UCLA is playing really good ball. I think they beat Washington, which means that UCLA would be 5-2. That'd be impressive comeback year for Chip Kelly. Number 4, I think I have Cal at 2-3. They would be playing the number 4. Believe it or not, it'd be 1-2 Arizona State. I'd probably take Cal because I just think Arizona State, I just think it's such a weird year. It's going to be hard for them. They'll beat Arizona because Arizona's terrible, but I just think it'll be difficult. I'd probably take Cal. And then number 4, this is just hypothetical. I don't even know if this is exactly the format that the Pac-12 is going to use, but I might as well go with it. And then I have number 5. It'd be Oregon State versus Utah. And they just played. If Jebby is back, they can beat Utah. Jebby and Johnson are back, they can beat Utah. If they aren't, then I'd take Utah again. And then the last game, Arizona versus Washington State in the toilet bowl. I think Washington State. I actually thought Washington State, beat Oregon State, looked good in the first half against Oregon, got run down a little bit, then had COVID, and then had canceled 2 weeks, and then just did not look good against USC. But I don't think they're terrible. Arizona is a horrible team. The rest of the Pac-12, I think if you're going to go from horrible team, I just don't think there's any great team, but I think people are always like, oh, Pac-12 sucks, Pac-12 sucks. I actually think there's a lot of decent teams. I think in a regular year, you're looking at a lot of 500. And it'd be different. They would be playing non-conference games. COVID normally wouldn't be to this extreme, but even if they would have gotten a couple more games in, it would have been nice to see. Who I feel real bad for is Arizona State. I think they were going to be the biggest competition to USC. Week 1, 28-27, they won in the last minute. Arizona State led the whole game. So it proved everything that I thought. Those are the 2 best teams. They got COVID, and I just think this is hard for them to even be really – that's just tough. And then they had some guys opt out. They had Mark Crosswell opt out. They had Jack Jones opt out. You don't really have much of a season to play for. They don't have a chance to win in the division. It just sucks for Arizona State. That's nothing. What other language is there to use but that? And then I actually thought UCLA was going to be a little better this year. Even before COVID and all that, I thought they were going to be more like a 7-5 team because it was like Chip Kelly, his system. He can coach. Didn't forget to coach. And they're going to probably have an equivalent 5-2 record, maybe better. I think that'd be par to have like an 8-4 kind of year. So I think they got better. And then Oregon, the opt-outs killed Oregon. The season getting postponed killed Oregon. Put Penei Sewell, put back their 3 of the best defensive backs, Brady Breeze, Jevin Holland, and Thomas Graham, 3 of the best defensive backs in the Pac-12. I just think that's a better team, better leadership. I think they'd be forcing more turnovers back in the back end. I think, let's say they don't opt out and we just do the shortened season. I think Oregon's undefeated with those guys. I really do. I just think they're missing the best offensive lineman and the best offensive lineman, not just in the Pac-12 but in college football. And then 3 of the best D-backs in the Pac-12. One of the best D-backs is Jevin Holland in college football. I just think those are pretty big losses, and it impacted the overall just season for them. So I think Oregon, the COVID, and then having the guys opt out, but then actually this shortened COVID season, Arizona State, Utah, Washington State just missing multiple weeks has just pretty much put the damper on their season. Anyways, guys, so I think it's a little bit difficult to take what's going to happen moving forward off of this shortened season. But anyways, that's it. Go check us out on iTunes. And I am out, and enjoy your weekend, and I'll talk Big Ten, Pac-12 next week.